Hi, my name is Sonny Woolard. I'm multi-site director here at The Crossing, and I also oversee the online component of Ministry Development Institute. So if you ever run into a problem, I'm the one that usually has the pleasure of taking care of you. Listen, the book of Acts is just an incredible book, actually one of my favorite books. Jesus, before he left, said, "Go into all the world, making disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." And we get to see that commission lived out in the book of Acts. It's just incredible to think this is where it all started, was with a handful of guys empowered by the Holy Spirit beginning to share their faith. And from there it went out and went out, and now it is all over the world. And it just starts right here in the book of Acts. That's why it's exciting to me. Acts is a history book. Like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they talk about the life of Christ. The book of Acts talks about really the Holy Spirit and the beginning and founding of the church and how it spread and some of the difficult things that they had to deal with at that time. Just an incredible passage that I want to share with you right now as we open up is Acts chapter 1, verse 8. I hope you're familiar with that verse. It's a very powerful verse, verse a lot of people know. It's Jesus speaking to them, and he says, "But when my Holy Spirit comes upon you, you will receive power to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the world." You see, what Jesus wanted to have started was not a religion, but a relationship, was a movement. I love how in this passage of chapter 1, verse 8, it talks about Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the outermost parts of the world. It is a movement, and it's a movement that we're still a part of even today. They were commissioned to do that, just as you and I are commissioned to go out and to do that. I just want to ask you a question, and a little bit of a devotional thought is, where is your Jerusalem? And what are you doing in your Jerusalem as far as the kingdom is concerned? And where is your Judea and Samaria? Is that your extended family? Is that people that are your acquaintances? Is that people you work with? Who is your all over the world? And what are you doing to reach people for Christ? You see, it's a movement, and we're called to be a part of it. It's not a religion where we come, we worship God, we listen to what the Word says, and we try to live a good life, and that's where it ends. We're involved and a part of this incredible movement that began here in the book of Acts. Now also in chapter 1, verse 8, that passage that I quoted to you, it serves as a perfect outline of the book of Acts and frames it very well. It starts out by saying, "You'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem." We find that in Acts chapter 1 through Acts chapter 7, that's where they were. Finally, in Acts chapter 8, there's a persecution that happened, and it says the church was scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. And that's the next words that are mentioned there in Acts chapter 1, verse 8. "You'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the uttermost parts of the world." I have to think that they, when Jesus said that it wasn't registering with them what he was saying. And that actually this persecution finally served to get them out of Jerusalem, out into Judea and Samaria, kind of the next circle around Jerusalem. So we find in Acts chapter 8, they finally get out of Jerusalem into Judea and Samaria. Now, the uttermost parts of the world, officially, I think, really started in Acts chapter 13 with Paul's first missionary journey. But we can back up a couple of chapters to Acts chapter 11, and that's when the first Gentile believers were converted to Christ, and that happened in Antioch, and that was a ways off. So actually it was spreading out then, but we find in Acts chapter 13, that's Paul's first missionary journey. And then it went out quite a ways, and then his second missionary journey that starts at the end of 15 and really is from 16 through half of chapters 18 is the second journey. And there we find him going out further. And then the third journey again, as far as Ephesus and some of those places Philippi that he went. So that was getting out further, and that ended in Acts chapter 21. So anyway, that's that's the uttermost parts of the world, and the awesome thing is that's where it began. We get to hear about that much, but we get to see how it's spread all over the world now. Speaking of outlining, this is an exercise that I hope you can understand the value of. It's just an incredible way to get your mind around the book of Acts so that you can know exactly where to go, what happened, where to find it, to be able to pull it out of your head and just say, well, that happened in Acts chapter 14, or that happened in Acts chapter 15. There's actually a very easy way to get Acts in your head that way. So in this first week, I want you to take time to do that. What I need you to do is read through the book of Acts, all 28 chapters. And as you read through the chapter, make a note of what that chapter is about. Most chapters will have just one event. Some will have two events. So you'll read down through Acts chapter 1. It's the ascension and the choosing of Matthias. Write it down, read the chapter, let it soak in for 10 or 15 seconds. Go on to Acts chapter 2, which is the day of Pentecost. Read through that, let it soak in a little bit. Go on to Acts chapter 3. Peter heals somebody and he preaches. Read through that, and as you're reading, just kind of lock that in. You get down to the end, take 10, 15 seconds, and look at that title that you gave it and think through what you read. Now at this point, I would recommend that you go back to chapter 1 and you read your note up there that says Ascension and the choosing of Matthias, and go, okay, yeah, I got that. Chapter 2, Pentecost. You're going to be able to visualize everything that's in that. And you can memorize this outline if you keep doing it that way and going back, coming down through it, taking on another couple of chapters, going back, coming down through it. You'll have it memorized. And I could ask you next week when Paul's first missionary journey was, and you go, bang, you'll just know it. When was Peter and Cornelius? When was that vision? When did that happen? And you'll know those things. Acts chapter 10, by the way.